If you're doing seven figures on Amazon, you might not want to jeopardize that revenue with, some of these review practices that you were doing before. You were mentioning this, Matt, the insider reviews and consumer testimonials. So this really gets into addressing reviews and testimonials given by officers or managers, so the owners of the business, but then also disseminating such a testimonial that the business should have known was by an officer and manager. So that goes back to the plausible deniability, right? No more, well, I didn't know so and so had this affiliation. That's saying, okay, well, you should have known, so you're still in trouble. But then also, managers solicit consumer reviews from their own immediate relatives or from employees or agents. And this is a very common practice, like you were saying, right? Someone launches a new product on Amazon, they're in a Facebook group, they have people in the community that everyone's trying to help each other out. It's a very common practice, but that is explicitly saying that is not allowed. And again, worst case scenario, you're looking at a $52,000 fine from texting a buddy to leave you a 5-star review on Amazon from an account that isn't obviously able to be connected back to you. So I thought that was very explicit in saying even the most benign version of this, which is review bot farms aside, messaging a couple people on the side to say, hey, I just launched this dog mat on Amazon. Can you buy it and I'll pay you back and leave a few reviews? That is not allowed. So.
Yeah, I mean they've clearly, tried to cover all cases. Again, like you said, I would hope that, they're not out prosecuting somebody with $500 in sales, who sold 25 units and, 4 of them were to friends. But I guess from their standpoint, right, they want to close all the loopholes because anytime you give somebody even the slightest out, again, the next thing you know, they're selling 50,000 reviews a month and they're going, no, but it's all friends and family. And you said that was okay. So they're saying, well, no, even in that case, it's not. I understand the intent, but I think, again, one, it would be very difficult at that small level to prosecute or to even discover, never mind prosecute.
Right,
and even if they did discover it, you would hope there would be some level of, like for like in figuring out what the punishment is going to be against whatever the gain was, right? Somebody getting nailed with a $52,000 fine that generated $1,000 of benefit from it.
Right.
It seems so far out of proportion. It's just, kind of ludicrous, but sometimes government stuff doesn't take into account what makes sense. Like, oh, the rule's the rule.
Rule's the rule.
So, that's what we got to do. But yeah, I think you're right in that, if somebody's been around a long time, they have 50,000 reviews, maybe 20,000 of those were at one point generated or purchased or whatever. But if they're not wiping the slate clean across the board for everyone and just saying, well, from now on, you can only get legitimate reviews. And you're like, well, fine, I have 50,000. But the new person on the block that has 2, they're never, ever going to reach any kind of parity with that. So yeah, I don't know how that works for newcomers other than just to say, you better have a killer product with a killer offer or you're going to always be second fiddle here.
Yeah. Oh, that's such an interesting point I hadn't even considered, right? Which is you commit the crime up until a point where you no longer have to commit the crime, right? You have such a lead that you can go the straight and narrow and be, live an honest life. But that begs the question, right? Of like, will Amazon continue to create technology to say, you have 50,000 reviews, you've been a seller on this platform for X amount of time, but our models that are very sophisticated tell us that 20,000 of those reviews were fake or AI generated or whatever. We're going to take those 20,000 away from you. Or is it going forward, now everyone is going to have to abide by this rule? That's really interesting. I wonder what direction they will take. I would think the most conservative, right? I mean, in the sense that right now, as we speak, there are millions of fake reviews on Amazon, on any number of third-party websites that are out there. I would think that would be such a vulnerable place of attack for Amazon to be prosecuted that they're going to commit a lot of resources to saying we're going to try to find these on the platform and have them removed. But I just don't know. I don't know the way that they're looking at this, right? If it's just okay, we have to enforce this going forward, or there'll be some amount of retroactive looking backwards to see who was in violation of this rule and how will that be dealt with. I just don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I would think the egregious cases from history they would try to purge, but how far down the rabbit hole are you going to go to research reviews from 2012? Or,
Yeah. Yeah.
the statistical model says, hey, it's unlikely you got this many 5-star reviews back then against this many sales. We're going to
Right.
pull them,
Right.
and I'm assuming that this law is a go forward position, right? Not something that says, these are the new rules, but you have to retroactively apply them back to some prior date. Now you're putting a pretty heavy burden on all the people who've had reviews in the past to go back and somehow vet whether or not, and the owners of the company could have changed in the meantime, and a million other things could have
Right.
happened.
Right.
That would be tough. I would imagine this is the rule from here forward. But yeah, like you said, if you used to be in the mafia and you made a bunch of money, but now you own a bunch of apartment buildings and you're totally above board,
Yeah.
they're not going to come and take the apartment buildings away because the source of the money came from crimes.
Right. Right.
But
Right.
now you're all on the up and up. So I think it's sort of, if you weren't in on the early days, you missed the boat. And if you did get in and you broke some rules back then, but you didn't get caught, well, now you've got amnesty.
Yeah. Yeah. Who knows what the statute of limitations will kind of be on some of this stuff. My advice at this stage of the game as someone who's selling is, whether it's for our stuff or for our clients, I've always encouraged people not to do this. I mean, and this gets to a lot of because of a lot of this has been sort of in the gray for a while, right? The last thing if you're a client service provider is to tell someone to do a thing and then they get in trouble for it. And they're gonna be the first person they're going to look at is you who gave them the go ahead to do that. So I know a lot of people have done certain, tactics with review generation and they've been very successful and nothing's ever happened to them. But there are certainly people who have had massive repercussions for it. So I've always advised people to stay away from anything, even again, a lot of these programs that are catered towards, reach out to the influencers and, send them free product. I just think that I think it was gray area before. I think now after this new ruling, it's pretty black and white. So I'd recommend folks to just stay clear of that. I mean, it kind of depends, right? If you're just starting out and you really are trying to grow your business, maybe you have nothing to lose. But if you're doing 7 figures on Amazon, you might not want to jeopardize that revenue with, some of these review practices that you were doing before. Another interesting thing was representations on websites, right? So anyone who sells on a third-party marketplace, Amazon being no exception, knows you really have very little control over what reviews Amazon displays, right? You can open up cases, and if VA or it's a fulfilled by Amazon product, if there's damage related to that item, you can often get those reviews removed. But Amazon wants to let a review hang on your account. You can open up appeals, but there's really nothing you can do. That, of course, has never been the case for your website, right? If you have a website that does any amount of serious volume or sales, you've obviously always been able to curate reviews related to that if you have reviews on your website. This ruling is saying that you really can no longer do that, in the sense that if someone leaves a negative review on your website, you obviously as the site admin and owner before, you could just say, all right, delete, that's no longer on there anymore. This is saying that, my interpretation anyway, is that you would have to let that stand as a review. Again, I have no idea how that would be enforced, but they're saying, hey, if you're on even a site that you control, if someone leaves a bad review, you've got to let that stand. You can't delete that. You can't curate that.
And I would imagine the only way that's ever going to come to light is, let's say I hire a plumber. I have a terrible experience. I go on their website. I write them an honest review that is negative. And in my view, it's it's honest review, but it's negative towards the company. I'd have to then screenshot it, come back the next day, see that they, removed it,
Right.
and then file a complaint with, hey, I posted a negative review on their website. They've clearly removed it. Here's the proof. But unless I call them out, nobody else is ever gonna, be looking for that or something. So it's really sort of, I would think, a consumer driven issue at that point. But, I guess it could happen that way, but somebody would have to know that it's a rule that you can't
Right.
take down stuff and whatever else. Cause otherwise, there's no other way to enforce that other than consumer complaints.
Yeah, you will have to have a really, really pissed off customer who is out for blood, I think, for that one to come back to haunt you. So hopefully you never get to that place with, whatever your business or service is. And then, the sort of the last one is based around sort of influencers and disclosure. I mean, this is just basically the internet testimonials in general. A lot of publications and folks are masquerading as independent in terms of their opinion that they're giving, or article or video they're making is not related to anything, it's just their honest opinion. And as we all know, that's often not the case. Usually there's some amount of financial incentive for that to happen. And that's saying that has to be disclosed. And if it's not, again, you're going to be in violation of this ruling. So I think that's a pretty decent. And then, of course, I mean, the obvious stuff is if you're doing fake stuff, like you're buying accounts that aren't yours or using bots to generate, traffic, that's not allowed. But yeah, I think the one that'll be most relevant for folks who are not engaged in really explicitly unethical practices will be the one around basically disclosure of third-party testimonials coming from influencers or independent websites, etc. I encourage people to check out the article, read it themselves. We'll have it in the show notes. It's straight from the FTC's website.